Okay, so welcome to our wood finishing. We have some cedar wood. We've done these tests on a few other kinds of wood last winter, but this is the demo for how to use each of these. So we're using tung oil, which is from a nut on a tree. We're using shellac, which is actually from a beetle originally, and a polyacrylic, a milky clear water-based finish. And so I'm going to apply it in kind of 3 different methods. So one thing that's important to do is always use a paint can trick, and I'm going to use this one first. So kind of go around as you do this. So this brand is widely available, and I actually forgot to mix it. So let me quick stir stick right here. So you always want to have a nice clean stir stick. So you stir this. And then I'm just going to stir this one by flipping it. I'm not shaking it. I'm flipping it 4 times. And again, with this one, I'm flipping this, not creating bubbles. Polyacrylic, you really do want to. So what you can do is if you're just doing a small thing, you can take, I like to use one of these bristle brushes. It gives you a really nice clean coat. And I'm doing this, I think, for my camera.
Well, your camera isn't really.
Okay, so I'm doing it for this one right here. And so you can see it basically creates a bubble-free and smooth finish. And so what I'll do is I'll take some on my brush from actually the stir stick here. And then what you can do is if you're doing this, you can either, with just a very small, you can just kind of lightly apply. And then I like to do it with you always want to go with the grain. And you can see it kind of instantly darkens down to a certain extent. This wood has been prepped with sandpaper. So this edge has not been prepped, and so you can kind of still see some of the lines from it. And this edge has also not been prepped. I'll do the end grain over here as well, just so you can see how much darker the end grain gets. And I'm going to leave the bottom and one side unpaired with it.
Hey, Michael, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why do you have it up on these little like supporting sticks?
Okay, thanks for asking that question. So these will make it so that it doesn't stick to the table, and so that there's just this little edge, so that the little bit that does maybe go underneath it, it's really easy to separate. And don't overbrush. So I slightly overbrushed on that, I'll be honest. And then when you're done with that, this is just water-based. You take a mallet. It's really important to kind of gently go around and get a nice even. So this is a lesson for paint or for any kind of coating like this. You want to flip it over. And what that'll do, this is with paint, any kind of can like this, is it creates a little seal in case there is a little gap. Okay, so, and then you want to take that and rinse it with soap and water right away. We're going to be so quick with these, so we're just going to keep going and then we'll rinse them all. So this is shellac. Again, you open it. And you can see it's been mixed, and I'm actually just going to take this and I'm going to use this as a stir stick. It was not stirred up quite well enough. And then I'm just going to take a rag that I have over here to remove it. But so you can see this is now, you can also get a test of what shellac looks like on Baltic birch plywood. So that's what this plywood is. The end grain, it really darkens it down. But on the face, it doesn't darken it that much. So then I'll take a brush. So this is a brush that we've used a bunch for shellac. So this is a shellac dedicated brush. You pull off any bristles, you can take it. Just take a little bit there, again, with the grain. And we have a student here, Rafe over here, who is working on and so this is cedar. That was milled, cut down from campus when they built the theater building about 5 years ago, I think. And so this is actually some of the wood, and Rafe is one of our senior theater majors. And I'll do it on the end grain. And Rafe is has just been working on a sculpture the last couple days out of cedar. And so thank you, Ray, for inspiring us making this finish video. So I'm just kind of getting that end grain. So with all of these coats, the first coat, you want to kind of make it pretty thin. You don't want to get too thick with it. So again, so we can just kind of do a quick check-in with these two. So you can see the difference in the end grains, how much darker and how much darker the shellac is than just the clear coat. And then this is actually a piece of Rafe's piece that he's clear coat, and I'm just gonna do half of it in this shellac.
So Michael, am I correct in observing that you put on the shellac a good amount thicker than you put on the polyacrylic?
I will tell you that the brush is a pretty used brush,
Okay.
and so it's not quite as controlled as my clear coat. But that's actually one of the reasons why I like this brush, is you can go pretty thin. And so, but yeah, but this you can kind of wipe back a little bit more. You're going to see with actually the tung oil that we actually totally wipe off the excess. So now I'm going to again use the mallet. I go around, light and gentle all around. I do a flip to clear coat. Okay, so now this is tung oil. I open this. So now for a small piece like this, you need to have 2 clean rags. If you're doing a bigger thing, you want to pour this into another container and then dip your rag. But if you're just doing a small amount, you can take a clean rag, fold it over. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to go with the grain. This is a brand of tung oil that I honestly haven't used too much. It's a little thicker. It's also been around for about a year now. We opened this before the pandemic started. And so there is a shelf life on this stuff, but it could be thinned a little bit, but it is going on just fine. Generally, when you get this stuff, it's a little thinner, but this has a kind of a decent viscosity to it right now. And so you just want to get it on nice and thick. And then with tung oil, you want to let it soak in for about 5 minutes. So I actually probably should have done this first in our demo, but it doesn't really matter. And I'll leave that one end. And then I'm going to do the other half of Rafe's piece, because even though this is the same wood, every like bit of wood can be a little bit different. And so it's okay if you're just doing a test, because essentially Rafe is trying to figure out if he wants to use tung oil or if he wants to use the shellac. And there's different kinds of shellac, and the shellac that he's using is that he would use is a you can let it dry, and then you can just kind of continually apply more stuff. And if everyone could just you guys should just take 2 steps back. Yeah, we're recording something right now. If you could just take a big step back and hold on a second. Yep. Okay, and then so now imagine this, that we had waited 5 minutes for this here. Then you would take a clean rag and you would remove any excess. Often on your first coat, you'll have very little excess. And this is an important step, is to wipe off oils. You really don't want to leave puddles of oils. And one advantage to oils is that you can always, if you get a scratch, you can just add another coat of oil. And for years, it'll just get more lustrous because it's actually penetrating deeply into the wood, while the polyacrylic sits on the surface. It does penetrate, but it sits on the surface, and it's not as easy to just touch up if things get scratched. The shellac, so polyacrylic, I could sit here for the next 3 hours, 4 hours, and build up 3 coats on this. Same with the shellac, like over the course of a couple hours, I could build up 3 coats. Tung oil, you have to give it 24 hours between each coat for it to fully harden. So again, I'm just going to kind of wipe back this one side. You can think of like tung oil as like an old school 1,000-year-old technology. Shellac is similar to that in a lot of ways. And then the polyacrylic is really like a more contemporary. It doesn't yellow. So if you want to keep your woods light, so to speak, that'll be your way to do it. Okay, so, and then with this one, shellac, you have to use rubbing alcohol to clean it, to clean your brush. And with polyacrylic, use soap and water. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, and I'll just kind of maybe put them all together for a second so you can see. So it looks like for this cedar, the shellac is the darkest after one coat. And I'll just pick up the end grains. But then it looks like, yeah, it looks like for the end grains, and so I'll just kind of focus on these two cameras. The end grains, so my right hand is holding the tung oil, the middle one is the shellac, and the one in my left hand is the polyacrylic clear coat. Okay, so that, and just while we're here, why don't I just grab these and I'll just show you these other. So again, so this is a birch plywood, and so this is tung oil for birch. This is shellac, and this is a clear wood finish. And then this is birch plywood, similar to what I used as a mixing stick. So this is the shellac here for baltic birch plywood. This is the clear coat polyacrylic, and then this, you can see it really yellowed on this wood. So I'm not into that so much. And then these are a little bit bigger. So this is more of just like a Douglas fir plywood. So this is the tung oil, this is the polyacrylic, and this is the shellac. And so we now have a few different tests of different kinds of wood. So you can kind of see these different pieces. So you can see that definitely the tung oil seems to be the most yellow. But I am going to kind of put a caveat that this brand of tung oil I have not used before, and it does seem to be a little more yellow than the other brands I'm more familiar with. But hopefully that is helpful and gets you a little entry point into also methods of testing clear coats, and also we have some things here at the studio. Okay, any questions?